to the I-0 Club, a special after dark edition, actually after the sun rises. It's a Sunday hangover edition of the I-0 Club. Josh Peterson, Jack Mitchell with you. If you are watching or listening live, you could be a patron or you could just be hanging out on YouTube. Subscribe, rate, review, subscribe, do all those things. But in all seriousness, do subscribe because we go live for free on the weekends after Nebraska's games. Normally on Saturday nights, but when they play a night game, we punt it to Sunday morning. We appreciate everyone being flexible with my schedule as I made it back from Minneapolis this morning. Jack, how much sleep did you get last night?
Oh, it wasn't too bad. I probably got 7 hours of sleep. I didn't stay up to that. Once the Oregon game ended, I went to bed.
Yeah.
Once the Oregon game ended.
Well, that's still pretty late.
With that. What was it, 12:30, 12:45 maybe?
Yeah.
I got up at 7:45, 8. So
yeah,
it was good. Man, I feel like it's been nice to. I'm kind of glad we didn't do the show last night, Josh. Not that we were going to, but like, there were the highs and not the lows, but just like the way. I'm glad we did the show at halftime. I'll just say that. Like, because that was the emotional peak of the night. And I'm glad we captured that moment in time because it still was a great win. We're going to talk about it today. But that was when I think a whole lot of other people were just riding the emotion, and it was the pinnacle of the entire night. So I'm really glad we captured it at the time we did. I think it worked out well.
Yeah, it definitely did. The end of the first half and how that came to an end with the weird, crazy touchdown by Ramir Johnson, and the 28-0 lead and a missed field goal by Colorado. And it's just like, wow, this first half literally cannot go on any better. And it's not that the offense doesn't score in the second half. The defense, of course, is the story. Like, there's a very real world, and it's so funny, that time capsule of our 20-minute show where Nebraska just keeps it rolling and the vibes are just at like this insanely high level. And I know Rule had a quote like about it. Like, I like these games. I'm paraphrasing, but he likes these games, right? Coaches love these games. They won comfortably, but there is so many things that they need to do better. And it's like, wow, the second half was perfect for all of those things.
I've heard a lot of people describe it that way. Like, it's the best possible situation because the second half maybe left the team, left the coaches, left everyone hungry, and is going to keep them, attuned to what they need to do for next week. But I mean, let's start, Josh.
Yeah.
Where I think you have to start, and this is what we hit this at halftime, but you got to come back to it too, because it continued in the second half, and this defense, and maybe more specifically, this defensive line is going to give offenses that are not really, really good a hell of a season this year. They're going to be a problem for a lot of teams.
Jack, you said a word last night that I have been thinking about a lot, and I've been thinking about a lot this morning as I was trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to talk about this game. Elite. You asked, is the defense elite?
Yeah.
And that is, I think, an incredibly fun question that I think will help shape whatever way this season moves forward. If the defense, DZ, was the word holding? That was not the word because that was the second half word. That defense, though, and what they were able to do, and you mentioned it in particular, the defensive line was an absolute game wrecker. And it's going to force, Jack, these teams to do what we saw last week from UTEP, what Colorado tried to do, and that's like throw fast, quick passes. And it's like, for teams like Colorado, that doesn't allow them to do what they want to do. If they have to do quick passes all night long, it doesn't allow their receivers to get open, deep down the field. Yeah. If other teams are going to have to do the same thing, it limits the playbook. But that's the word, elite. Is this defense elite? Because, Jack, if they are, oh my gosh, again, it's just the margin of error for the offense to really play, stuck in the mud / penalty fest in the second half. And the game still, I don't know about you, I never felt uncomfortable. It never, for me, I know some were like, oh my gosh, here it goes. I never felt that way.
No, I did not. Just to clarify, I did not. In terms of losing the game, I was just annoyed because I wanted the drug of that first half some more. I needed another hit of that stuff. But that was not a feeling of, they're going to lose. Because, the defense, I wasn't scared. Man, I'll tell you what, Josh, and they did not go as vanilla as they did, obviously, against UTEP. And they they did some blitzing and stuff, but there were also plenty of times where 3 or 4 guys overwhelmed that offensive line. And
yes, they didn't need to blitz.
Just overwhelmed that offensive line. And I know we've said it. Everybody knows it. Colorado's offensive line has its issues. I think, though, this defensive line is good enough that unless you're an above average offensive line, they're going to be incredibly disruptive to offenses going forward.
Yes.
And it's a great thing for Nebraska. I mean, all the freaking credit in the world to Tony White and to Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker and Jamari Butler, and you got Kai Wallen lining up like he's going to run the freaking 100-meter dash. I mean, holy crap. And then you see him like Kai freaking Wallen. He's lining up and he's like, I know this tackle is not going to be fast enough to touch me on the edge. I'm going straight in. I'm going out far enough. I'm going straight in. James Williams was doing the same thing. I mean, James Williams tied up the snap so much that they thought he was offside. Yeah. He was just like, oh man, that's what I woke up excited about this morning, Josh, is what this defense. We talked this year about, man, the defense was solid. They were a plus last year. They've got to get more pressure and they've got to take the ball away more. Can they do those things?
Yep.
Are they going to take regressions? Are people going to figure out the 3-3-5? So far, every answer to every question I just asked through 2 games has been a positive one.
Yeah, absolutely. Some comments. D'Lo says, game was over the moment Tommy's foot crossed the goal line. I couldn't agree more. Jab says that opening 3 and out set the tone for the entire game. It really, really did. That game and the way in which it unfolded was set immediately with the defense just causing huge problems. I think it was through, I need to look at the drive chart again, but I think it's through 5 drives, Colorado has 10 yards. And the first drive is negative. It's negative like 7 or 8. Again, so it took 5 drives to get to 10 yards. And I think they had it in that point, Jack, it was 12 plays because I remember Burmeister mentioned at one point, like, they're not even averaging a yard per play or something like that. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, the way in which, and Rule hit on this in the post game too, like being able to do this every week. They obviously won't. The crowd is not going to do this every week.
That obviously
but my God, man, they answered the bell to a degree that we have not seen Nebraska do in a game like this in quite some time, where we all were thinking they need to show up early. Colorado never had a chance to get comfortable. It was always a pain, even after the long kick return. And they can't run the football on Nebraska. Nebraska's in the backfield immediately on those 4th and shorts. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, when they knew they were going to run, they could not. They literally couldn't unless they surprised Nebraska with a run. You're exactly right. I mean, some of those drives, some of those sequences in the first half was as good as defensive I've seen at Nebraska since probably Bo Pelini years. Honestly.
I was going to say, Jack, the game that came to my mind, and it also had a fast start, though, in a little bit of a different way, was the Missouri game in 2010, where Nebraska's defense came out and they just kicked the shit out of Gabbert, like, immediately. They go 3 and out. Now, that's the Halou game that, Roy Halou is killing them. And, like, again, that's what's such a bummer about the second half is, like, there were big plays. They just always got called back. Ja'Cory Barney, I imagine that when, like, the dust settles on this week and we kind of move past some of the things, like, what a difference maker Ja'Cory Barney is and is going to be. Like, how many yards did he have last night that didn't count?
That's a great question.
Sometimes 50? The penalties were legit and sometimes they weren't, but my goodness, he is so good.
You can see when he gets the ball, it's electric. Oh, but let me get back real quick to the defense again, though. Sorry. I still got to keep piling on. The other thing that we asked about this defense, Josh, at the beginning of the year, you and I did in our I-0 podcast. Subscribe here at YouTube, by the way. The other thing is, will one of these linebackers become a dude? I mean, they all had good games last night, but John Bullock's getting close. He got close last night to becoming a dude.
Yeah.
Like to becoming a real, like when you're talking about the stars on the defense, the way he played last night at least was that, I think. If he keeps that up, that is going to be just another boon to this defense as well. So
absolutely.
Like 200, man, can you imagine 19 rushing yards? I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like 250 passing yards, a couple of turnovers, a fumble, and a pick. I mean, it's just that Colorado's had their problems, but nobody but Oregon's done that to this offense when Shedeur was playing, at least.
Well, and I know we talked about that a little bit yesterday. The the coming out party idea, Stephen Godfrey mentioning he thought Nebraska could do to them what Oregon did. In the end, like because of the penalties in the second half, the offense never really had a chance to truly do that. But good Lord, man, Jack, there's a very real world where we're coming on the air right now and we're saying, yeah, they won 42-10. Like that was very, very close to happen.
Oh yeah,
very,
for sure.
very close.
For sure.
And you want to talk about another thing, defensive side of the ball. Travis Hunter finishes with 100+ yards, quiet. Honestly, the loud part of him was just going after, like yelling at people on the sidelines and stuff. But that was the quietest game. And look, I'm not going to pretend like I've watched every Colorado game since Deion got there. This is game 14, but I've watched probably half a dozen, maybe a little bit more in full. This is the quietest I can ever remember him kind of feeling, in a performance.
Yeah. And they thought they had him like I can't remember in the second half. The second half all kind of melts together, but I think they had one where they thought they were going to have him in the corner on the end zone, and he always gets that play and makes it. Yep. Didn't play it, and the throw.
That was the one where he lost it, right?
That was when he got pissed. Yeah, he got pissed, and there were reports that he was just sitting by himself on the sideline, And Colorado handled distress kind of like we thought they would too, Josh, for the most part. It doesn't seem like this sounds like piling on, and it seems like, but it doesn't seem like they're built on a solid, like, emotional foundation.
No,
right?
It does not.
You know what I mean?
It does not. Yeah, we saw it. We saw it. I think we saw it multiple times throughout the game. Like the one positive that I'll say about Colorado is they really do hit hard. No matter what the score is, they hit hard.
Yeah, they had a few,
John and I were sharing some DMs with each other earlier. He let me know the atmosphere, by the way, incredible, obviously. And I know quite a few of our subscribers were there last night. The atmosphere was ridiculous, but he was like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was a comment about the amount of hitting that was going on in the early portion of the game. Like it was very old school in that regard, where they're just kind of hitting the shit out of each other. And it's like, wow, I don't know, man. I feel like this game is going to very much prepare Nebraska in a lot of ways for things moving forward in terms of things you can control, things you can't control. They certainly have things that they need to clean up. But in terms of emotion, dare I say, with a great start, we'll talk about a big emotional game in that Ohio State one at the Horseshoe in a month and a half or whatever. But otherwise, like, I think that they answered a lot of the questions about how they would handle this moment. And they got hit pretty hard in moments too. And I think that was a good thing for them as well.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. I think I was hoping, I kept hoping the offense would, and a lot of them got called back, but like take a shot, and they did take some shots as well. I kept thinking like this was coming, like they were going to go deep, or there was some, but in a lot of times, or mostly, it didn't happen. But I think that was also by design, right? Like I think that there was a whole lot of stuff in the backfield with Ja'Cory Barney and with Lloyd and with using Ramir as a receiver, and so it was not the game plan I expected on offense. And I'm not even saying that to critique it, but it wasn't like, let's let Dylan eat, It
really wasn't. It was a lot of short passes.
And the run game looked different too, even than I thought.
Yeah, they tried to get the ball to guys in space. Ravi Lula, who's hanging out in here this morning, he says, I know people are frustrated with the second half offense, but I really think there's no ability to judge with how shitty that officiating was. It completely disrupted everything. And then D'Lo adds on top of that. And by the way, we're reading comments from inside of our Discord server. If you'd like your comment read, you can become a patron today at patreon.com/IDclub. But D'Lo writes, combined with the conservative approach, it's a non-topic. And it's funny because I tend to be more on that side of the aisle than the offense was horrible. I want to yell about Marcus Satterfield all night long. But I know that tomorrow when I go on the radio and when we continue to talk about this, like, I think people, because of the priors that you have about Satterfield, I think that is going to shape the way, for right and wrong, it's going to shape the way that you viewed the second half. It was very clunky. I thought that there were some really good play calls in there that, again, there's a world where we're talking about Nebraska winning 42-10, getting some other scores. I mean, not to mention, man, you just said what you did about the offense, and I don't disagree, but Jalen Lloyd also had that drop on the deep ball that we're like, if that hits, Jack, we're not saying that they didn't go down the field. It's just there's a play that they don't get.
And Dylan had that crazy rolling to his right, throw across his body play. That was to Lloyd, right? At the 1 yard line.
Yep. At the very end of the first
That's
half.
a play I try in NCAA all the time. Always a pick. 100% of the time I throw that pass.
Yeah.
That's a pick. I would say the one like I'm not here to nitpick, but like I guess on the offense, it's less just about, I think I would have liked to have been able to see it run, even assert their will running the ball a little bit more in the second half. Colorado kind of knew it was coming and got into those run blitzes, and a lot of time had some success. Nebraska was not able to run it quite as well as I hoped they would. But again, I think that's a little nitpicky at this point. But like, it didn't feel like, oh man, they're wearing them down with the downhill running game. I kind of hope to see a little bit of that, I think, in the second half, and I'm not sure that I ever did. But I think it's also a fair point. Like, the rhythm of that game was so freaking goofy, and they had big plays, but what a bizarre experience that entire second half was, between just the complete different feel than you had in the first half when you were just up here. Everything was going incredibly well, but then the officials in every way they impacted the game. And then you started, like, you were a little quieter. At least I was in my house, and I'm listening to the play-by-play guys more, and I'm listening to Colt McCoy, and I'm just like,
yeah,
it was just tough. It was a tough hang for a big win, you know. I don't know if a program-changing win. The second half was a bit of a tough hang.
Well, D'Lo had a great comparison earlier, the 2001 Notre Dame game. And for those of you who are either too young to remember or just don't remember, Nebraska jumped out huge on Notre Dame. They score on their first drive. They get a takeaway on Notre Dame's first play, I think. They score on the very next play. Nebraska is dominating Notre Dame, but basically all of their points, if not every single point, is scored in the first half. And so it's a very comfortable win for Nebraska that night versus the Irish. But you just kind of leave it and you're like, okay, well, that was interesting. Right. I definitely think we learned a lot about the team. I think we learned a ton about the defense, man. Like, I know that we keep talking about it, but that they are easily the story. They are easily the takeaway from this one. I think Joe brings up something interesting though. He says, surprised not much of EJ. The running back rotation. One of the criticisms, Jack, that has been thrown the way of EJ Barthel is they're bouncing around too much. They're substituting guys. I know that there were subs last night. It was Ramir and it was Dowdell, and it was Ramir and it was but that was pretty much it. The carry, there was a carry late in the game from Emmett, right? Did he? I should
Emmett got one and Irvin got two, I believe.
Yeah, but those were when the game was pretty much done, right?
Yeah.
So think about that, man. Half. That was not what I expected. Dowdell finished with 17 carries for 74 yards. Ramir had 9 for 33, but he also had 8 catches for 49 yards. His best kind of dual threat role.
Oh yeah, they're going to use Ramir. They're going to use Ramir. I completely put in a different category now than the rest of them. Yeah, I barely think of him as a running back, even though he is, because he plays such a different position. I feel like than those other guys do. Yeah. And they're gonna use him as a way. Ramir's. Do you find Ramir to be like really hot or really cold on how he looks? Like, there'll be plays. Again, he had a play at the beginning of the game where it looked like he didn't see, from my perspective on my couch, I saw the hole, but like, he didn't see the hole, or he didn't make a cut that was obvious. He had another one of those. But then other times, like on the play that got back, holy cow, he looked great. Like, he was flying. I really have that hot or cold thing with Ramir Johnson this year, but I just think
a lot of agility. He has a lot of agility,
yeah,
which is nice. And who said it? Let me scroll. Chuck, Dante Dowdell took the job 100%. I think, Jack, I think a lot of us felt that way after last week. Obviously, the fumble towards the end of the game or in the beginning of the game rather, was a huge bummer. He is the guy. He is the guy at running back, and it's pretty wild to think of how we have discussed him over the course of the last 7-8 months. Going back to the spring versus now, it's fairly interesting just how different I think my viewpoint is on Dante Dowdell. Yeah. I think he is easily the guy. I think that he looked really, really good. And Nebraska, it's funny, man, the pass protection I thought it left a lot to be desired in the second half, especially where, Dylan is having to make moves, and dude, talk about a guy who makes some really fun moves before he throws the football. I thought that run blocking though was pretty solid, especially when the game was in doubt in the first half.
How about his scramble in the first quarter?
I know, man.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I was like, slide, man. You get on the ground. But
he got fucking stomped on that play. He got hit really hard from the side.
I was like, man, it was a great scramble. It was a great job to go ahead and do it. And I'm glad he did, because the other starting quarterback wouldn't have done that in that game.
Yep. Yeah. And there was a play in the second half that where the edge, it came off of his right side and he just like immediately stepped around him. And it's like his pocket.
He did that a bunch of times. You're right.
He did. How many sacks?
That was probably the most impressive thing.
Have teams gotten on him so far? Is it one? Has he been sacked one time
against UTEP,
I believe that's
right?
it. I don't think Colorado got
not a sack last night.
I don't believe so.
Wow.
So I think the number is 1 through 2 games. And speaking of 1 through 2 games, where is it at? Scott says, how about the fact that we have 1 turnover in 2 games? Such a night and day difference from last year. How many did we have through 2 games last year? 6, 7, or 8? Yeah, it's definitely near in that 6 to 8 range. And they, 0 turnovers +3 overall. So now they're +4 on the young season. And if you count the safety last week, like Matt Rule does, they're at +5.
And you remember what we said the week before the season, Josh? I was like, what does a +10 turnover margin this season mean for this team?
Yeah, seriously.
And they're on pace.
We saw,
and that was part of. Oh, I want to say that was kind of like that's part of that offensive game plan too. Was just to make sure, just to make sure they weren't turning the ball over. I think there was some low risk to turnovers for the offense, and it wasn't not trusting Dylan Raiola, but I think that was intentional too, and it worked. They're going exactly to what Rule's plan is right now to hold on the ball, be more physical. I can't remember his 3 keys, but those 3 things that he talks about.
Let's see, D'Lo. If Nebraska is even +1 at the end of the year, that's 8 wins minimum. Yeah, again, the floor, I think, of the ceiling or of the season rather has just been raised a lot because of the way in which the defense is playing it, that the offense is able to hold on to the football. So if that continues, it's not to get ahead too much, Jack, because we've been wanting to talk about this game forever, but I am really interested to see how they come out next week. Like, you want to thank God it's a night game. In all seriousness, like. You're not interested in that at all?
I don't even know what that'll feel. I'm not interested in. I mean,
it's more.
I'm interested in seeing Jalen Gramstad. I mean, like, I don't know. It's
just like the come down. Like, this was the game that we have been building up for months and months and months. And so, it's not weird. That I think they're going to lose or it's going to be close, but is it sleepy at all? Thank God it's a night game. So at least it's not an 11 a.m. game and everyone's like, I don't really care about this. The fun was had last week. D-Dub says that's a good way to say it. The floor has been raised. This game doesn't change my view on the ceiling yet.
Yeah, it is good. That is a good way to say it.
I don't think my view on the ceiling has changed yet either. Though, Jack, I did want to ask you what you thought of Stuart Mandel putting Nebraska in his playoff.
I did not see this. Wait. I have not been notified of this. I've not read a lot this morning yet. So
he has them as an 11 seed playing at Alabama in the first round. Your thoughts?
That's a scenario. That's the most surreal thing. Nebraska's going to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama in the first round. Wow.
Your thoughts?
I mean, look, the Big Ten was goofy yesterday, Josh.
Very goofy.
The Big Ten was goofy. I mean, Iowa. Wow, Iowa. And obviously Michigan is. I mean, that doesn't look like a playoff team at the moment. I suppose it's not impossible, but that doesn't look like a playoff team at the moment. USC is the one that looks like the playoff team outside of Penn State. Didn't look like a playoff team either yesterday.
No, they did not.
So, I mean, if you're assessing the conference and who, I can see
Illinois, Joe, with Illinois, that Friday night game in a couple of weeks. How about that one now all of a sudden?
I can see how people from the outside are assessing the conference. They're like, well, right now it looks like Ohio State and USC. And if I had to pick a third team, maybe Nebraska,
Yeah. Riss, listening from right over across that wall, says, perhaps this is too sunshine and rainbows of me, but it is weirdly refreshing seeing a quarterback immediately just give up on those couple of broken plays where it seemed like the running backs and Raiola had different plays in mind. I feel like they would have easily become lost fumbles in the past. Yeah, Jeff Sims probably would have taken the ball and just tossed it backwards for some reason.
That might have been a sack. There was one where they had some miscommunication and he went down too. That might have counted as a sack, but I don't think he actually got touched on the play.
Yeah, I'll look at the numbers. No, they didn't call it a sack. They called it a run.
Okay. Yep. They called it a run. Can I ask you a question? What in the hell is Colorado doing with that team? Like, what are we doing? Well, do they really think they can just not have a run game the entire season?
Dude, I know.
What are they doing with that offense? It is the most backyard. We're going to just get it to the best players, best player on the team's hands, and we're going to let him and hope he can beat everybody else. And then we're going to portal an offensive line, but we're going to do it with mostly replacement level offensive linemen. Like, What are they thinking? Seriously,
I don't know. People mentioned it last night on the Discord. I saw a comment earlier today in the Discord during the pod, and that is like they are building their roster and their team around like making certain players look good. And like Jack, that is often a criticism at like the lowest levels of football, right? Like a dad coaches his son in Pee Wee football, and his son is the quarterback or back in the day, the running back or whatever. And it's like, just give little Johnny the ball because Johnny Sr. is the head coach. And it's like, I think that definitely happens at lower levels of football, maybe even in high school. I do not ever recall watching a game where it felt that way in college. And look, do I totally want to go there? Like, I don't know. But I feel pretty close to it, right? I feel pretty close to believing that they are trying to make Shedeur and Travis Hunter look good. And if that's the case, like embarrassing is one way to describe it. A joke is another. How they think that they could build this roster like this. Like I know that Colorado, their fans all offseason were like, why are you talking this shit? Why are you saying this? We beat you last year, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, yes, you did beat Nebraska last year, but you were a 4-8 football team, and you cannot build your roster by trying to portal the lines. It is impossible. And yet, and it's like, that's the thing that I am just stunned by. Ari Wasserman has been saying this for years, man. Well, like a year and a half now. Deion Sanders, what is he? He is famous. He isn't football famous. He is famous. His inability or whatever it is to not go into high schools and recruit is ridiculous. He is giving up the biggest advantage that he and the program could have. For what reason? I don't know. Is it health? Maybe it's health. I watched him try to walk around the sidelines. He doesn't look comfortable. He ran on the field. He doesn't look comfortable, but it's like, okay, if that is causing you to not go recruit in high schools, that is also a problem for your program, man.
And maybe, but even if you're going to portal like they are and you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to call, how do you get to a spot where, and I'm sure he's a great kid, that the running back, you get an Ohio State guy who's barely a factor. He did have one good run last night in Hayden, but you're really keeping Charlie Offerdahl, a walk-on, as your starting running. So you're pairing Charlie Offerdahl on this offense. I mean, talk about like the highs of the highs in the terms of talent, and then just the lows of the low all across that offense. It's crazy. And I was just looking at the targets last night. Travis Hunter had 14 targets with 10 receptions. Like the Vandy transfer, who we were talking about coming into the year, he had 3, right?
What did Jimmy Horn have? Because he only had 3 catches for 26 yards.
Yep, 8 targets, 3 catches.
Wow,
his long was 11. So there are some defensive backs that need some. Well, again, actually, it still probably was the defensive line. I mean, more than anything, I cannot say enough about that defensive line. They tried to scheme her out at the beginning of the game too, Josh. Did Colorado. They're like, we know at the beginning of this game we're not going to have time, so we're going to do these. We're going to get the ball, quickly to the side in the flat. Ty Robinson was batting that shit down.
I know.
They were in there so fast they couldn't even do their quick passes because there was either pressure or they got a hand on it. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, so to go back, Jack, to the question that you asked to kick this discussion off, it's like, what are they doing? Man, I don't know. There was a comment a few minutes ago. Let me scroll back up. Well, D'Lo says with his kid in the NFL, there's no way Deion is back next year. Riss, it's pretty obvious that Deion cares more about Shedeur and Travis's draft stock than he cares about winning games. And, like, again, the answer, I think, the answer is closer to that than it is like the alternative. And the alternative, I guess, would be like they're just a bad program. They're obviously a bad program. But I think that there is a lot of truth to be had in how they build the program and what they are trying to be and what they're trying to do. And like last year, they had that nice 3-0 runway, and then, things went off the rails. Since they started 3-0 last year, they are now 2-9 as a program. And like at a certain point, it's going to wear on you. They have the rivalry game versus CSU this weekend. I don't really know a whole lot about Colorado State's roster, so I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I do remember last year and how that was the beginning of the end. They won the game in overtime, but that was the beginning of the end. And like, you want to talk about people who took stuff personally. Colorado State took stuff personally. And so I don't know. Again, I don't know if they're good enough to beat them, but would it surprise me? Absolutely not. It wouldn't. Again, given the issues of their lines is just, I think it's fairly obvious at this point.
I kept thinking we watched that North Dakota State game, and I said to you while we were doing our live broadcast, I was like, God, they are struggling with a North Dakota State line who is really good for, I'm sure, FCS, but if they play like that, I just didn't know if the Colorado offensive line would really look that bad when it mattered, and sure enough, they did.
By the way, that game is on at the same time as Nebraska's game next week, 6:30 on CBS, which is a great reminder that if you want to join us for our watch party for Northern Iowa at Nebraska, we did this for the Colorado opener actually 10 days ago versus NDSU. We'll be doing that for subscribers only inside of our Discord server, 6:30.
That'll be fun.
Saturday night. It's going to be fun as hell for the Northern Iowa game.
Hopefully, so low pressure.
Low pressure, lots of vibe. Hey, that's going to be like a 3.5 hour podcast. We'll take the halftime break, but otherwise we're going to go. That'll be a lot of content. We will not be doing a Sunday recap next week because we'll be watching the game live on Saturday. So, yeah.
So let me ask you this question, Josh.
Yep.
Two games in. We spent all summer theorizing about what the record would be going through individual games, assessing what we thought parts of this team would be and wouldn't be. How has your view of the season changed from 2 weeks ago Friday to right now as you look at not only how Nebraska has been for 2 games, but what the schedule looks like and what we know about who those teams are?
Yeah, let me open up the schedule now. It's a really good question. And it's funny, too, because Riss and I were texting at some point yesterday about Michigan. It's like, damn, wouldn't it be nice if Michigan was on the schedule this year instead of Ohio State? I digress. Illinois, I'll be honest, I think that game is suddenly a little tougher than I thought it was going to be going in. So looking at this from the opponent factor first, feel the same way about Purdue, feel the same way about Rutgers. I don't know. I've been so down on Indiana that I'm wondering if I'm going to have to eat a little bit of crow there. Certainly USC looks a whole lot better than I expected. What were you going to say about Indiana?
I was just going to say Signetti is such a weirdo.
He is such a weirdo.
It's going to be such a the only thing I can compare it to, and it's not a one-to-one great comparison, but was when Tom Crean was super weird at the same school, oddly enough. Like, Signetti's going to be such a fun, weird thing going forward.
Yeah.
It's good to have coaches that are weird in your conference. So anyway, USC obviously is the biggest stock up opponent of all of them right now, I would think.
100%. Iowa stock is down. Wisconsin stock, I don't know. I mean, you and I think we're pretty down on them coming into the year, so maybe it's about the same. So, okay, so the teams, I would say, overall, the schedule is about what I expected the schedule to be. I don't think anything has really changed.
On balance.
One team is better, one team is worse, right? USC's improved, Iowa's maybe a little bit worse. So I think I start there. I think Nebraska I thought the defense was going to be good. I think the defense is better than I thought it was going to be. So I think I would start there. I keep coming back to that word you said, man, elite. I keep coming back to that word. So I think that the defense is better. The offense, I think I'm like a little incomplete on. And am I thinking, Jack, too much about the second half of last night and a bit of a ref show and some penalties that Nebraska, it was their fault. And so that's the part right now that I need to figure out is how much of this offense and the second half happening is refs. The game was over a little bit. They're very conservative versus how much of it was something that we're going to say, is there a world, Jack, I guess in a month where we look back and say, man, the signs were there in the second half versus Colorado and we didn't want to see it. I think we're going to get an answer to that question. Maybe it's in the affirmative and maybe it's not.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, that's the worry. It's not that you're freaking out about the way that game, and there were obviously factors, but yes, what you're thinking about is exactly what you said. Is there going to be a game later this year? Like, yeah, we should. There was some foreshadowing happening, or maybe not, or maybe there won't be. I want to see, Josh. I think to your point, to get a full assessment of this offense, I feel like we need to see them in a game where the game is in doubt the entirety of the 4 quarters. Like the offense always needs to score.
That will be interesting, man. Way. Yeah, because think about the players that we were talking about a week ago coming out of the first game. Isaiah Nayor, he only had 31 yards. Obviously, Jamal Banks, he only had 2 yards. I got a text last night from somebody saying, hey, did Carter Nelson play? Don't really recall seeing Carter Nelson out there on the field. So like some of the stars from last week, I think were less impactful this week. On the other hand, I would say it's so obvious how much they like Ja'Cory Barney. He had 8 touches. He had 8 touches for 57 yards.
We need to talk about it more.
That does not tell the story of the game because of the penalties. He was well on his way to over 100 yards in that game last night. On his way.
That guy is like, he's electric when he touches the ball. I don't remember too many guys who seeing when they've got the ball like that for Nebraska, where it was like, man, he is just this little dude, like lightning bug speed. Holy cow. I love that guy. It's going to be awesome. Really interesting to see what they do with it and see him what he can do as a receiver downfield too. I mean,
well, whoever said it,
small, but
whoever said it, Jack, for the first time, and my apologies for not remembering which of our subscribers it was. He is who we thought Tyjon Lindsey was going to be.
That's a great way of putting it. Yes.
Whoever said that last week, it is an incredible comparison. It is such a good comparison. Fight says, imagine Barney.
He looks
if
like
Barney was playing the classic wingback position. That's a fun one.
Like a little Dana Brinson type situation there. Fight.
Bruce says Bobby Newcomb freshman year. Dude, he's so fast. He's so skinny. He got stuck a couple of times last night.
I was struck in that. I didn't realize in that UTEP game when I watched it. I saw him in the spring game, but I saw that UTEP game and I did not realize how tiny he was. Yeah. He is so small. Yeah, I really thought Banks. I thought the big receivers downfield would be used more than they were. And again, this isn't even a critique of the game plan necessarily, but like that wasn't a huge factor. And when they did go deep, Josh, it was really, I mean, it was kind of some elaborately drawn up plays, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't really like a ton of, drop back. Like I think of that touchdown to Jamal Banks. Obviously, you were running out of time in the UTEP game. Yeah. You were obviously running out of time, but we did not see much of anything that looked like that the entire game.
Yeah. And so how much of that is game plan? How much of that is the game script unfolding in the way it did? I mean, again, not to bring it up, but the Jalen Lloyd drop, like they were trying to go deep. It just didn't happen in that moment.
Yes. So, all right, we're all kind of watching NFL now.
Dave says Lloyd coming back to catch that deep ball was impressive. It really was.
I can't believe it worked.
If he would have thrown it further, it would have been a touchdown. Now I know that I'm saying something like, oh, if he just would have been had an even better throw, it would have been a touchdown. But incredible adjustment when the ball was in the air.
Stu Monge said, I thought this offense would attack the immediate routes in the middle more, especially with the tight ends. Curious to see if that develops as the season goes on. That's a great way. That's a better way of saying what I was thinking I would expect. Just like drop back routes, middle of the field, especially with the big receivers, especially with Fedoni, that kind of stuff. I think they still will. Again, I think there was a little bit of nuance to that game plan, given the context of the game, probably. And
given Dave said the lack of tight end touches is surprising. It really is. It really is in this one. But
Orchard had a big catch during the game, right?
Yes, he did. Yes, and hey, how about Fedoni? He had a nice one, right, where he got stuck over the middle and he picked up a big first down.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. There wasn't a lot, though. I would like to see. It'd be interesting to see that offense. It feels like the offense would hum a little bit more if they were able to do that. You know what I mean?
100%. Let me throw this theory out there for you then, Jack. Is there is the glass half full version of this? Oh man, we didn't see a lot of Banks in Aor and the tight ends were kind of non-existent. Is the glass half full that they have that many weapons that on a game-to-game basis, it's maybe not going to be as consistent as we think it is, that it's not going to be a Nayor or Banks every game, but it's going to be other guys too?
I don't think any of us were thinking Ramir or Barney were going to have the kind of touches that they did in this game. No. I don't think anybody, they were our picks to click, but they obviously went into the game with that plan using those guys and Jalen Lloyd. It was those guys out of in a little bit of a non-traditional combined wide receiver running back type role. That was the way they wanted to attack this defense. And again, it, in a lot of ways it really worked. Again, I mean, we can't talk about the refs enough. I don't know what to say.
What? We have barely even mentioned them yet on the pod. We've mentioned them in passing, but we have not really talked about them a whole lot.
I have made an entire lifetime shtick on non-holding calls being egregious.
Yeah.
I don't think I've recency of the moment. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. And I've seen a lot of non-called holdings in my life. I mean, he's got Ty Robinson shirt tail as he's going towards Shedeur at one point. Yeah. It was so bad. 24th in the coaches poll.
Yeah, that just came out. First time ranked in the after week 1 since 2019. AP poll, by the way, coming out a little later than normal today. I saw a tweet from Ralph Russo. I believe it's 1 o'clock our time. So,
even our resident ref thought the ref struggled. Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Biff, ref struggled, and that's coming from me.
Wow. There you know it.
Uh-huh. They were bad, man. And because you know me, I'm Jack. I am not a refs guy. I'm not a refs guy. I don't like engaging in the discourse, and I certainly don't like bitching about every single play. But good God.
It made the game so hard to watch. It wasn't even about, it wasn't even necessarily, it was about the bad calls, but it also just murked everything up. It made it not fun.
It did. The second half just got so clunky. Shave had a great tweet where it was like, every awesome Ja'Cory Barney play is really cool, and then it's called back for a penalty. Mm-hmm. And that happened, especially the last one that he had that was freaking awesome.
Yep.
Very sad.
It was
very sad.
It was, they were terrible. And then there was a bad roughing the passer on Nebraska. It felt like the targetings were super adjudicated, super inconsistently. And I know that's a replay deal, but I felt like they were every one almost went differently than I thought it was going to with the targeting.
There was a stretch where there was that one drive that Nebraska had late in the game where they were moving left to right on the TV. And there was they had penalties, but then Colorado would have penalties. And so it ended up being, Sumaji had the stat last night. It was 8 plays, 12 yards, and 4 minutes went off the clock. And it's it was just the weirdest shit ever.
It took all the wind out of my sails to party all night. That section you talked about.
It really
right
did because, and did you tweet it or did you comment in here where you mentioned you just want one touchdown to end the game?
Yeah.
So it's just we were all waiting for just that one final score, and
it was just
never
start the party.
Happen.
It was you were waiting for someone to start the party and nobody ever did, and you were like, so is it starting now?
Yeah,
that's how the end of last night felt.
Not you're pre-gaming, and you're all right, are we ready to go? Are we ready to go? Yeah. It's oh, where are the keys though? And it's crap, I can't find my keys.
The emotional, the peak of the fun and emotion and everything was that halftime show last night that we did. If you can't get the party going, go back to that, because I was giddy.
We almost should put that. We should put that on top of this pod at the end, where it's hey, and here's another 20 minutes where we're just freaking out, losing our minds for a little bit. Enjoy, because we were really, really excited.
Hey, can we just have an appreciation moment for how sweet that Tommy Hill pick six was as a
glorious
moment in Memorial Stadium? And
I've talked
to my son who is there. I've talked to people in I-0 who are here. I've heard other media talk about what that stadium was just freaking up for grabs in that moment. And I would love to hear from you in the chat of your oral history of that moment too. I could, and I watched it again.
That was a religious experience.
Yeah, I got to imagine it had between Bud Crawford coming out with the team, and I'm sure they had pump up videos. I mean, I bet you guys who were there were in. I mean, I know I was here, into such a frenzy that you just almost got completely caught up in that moment there. And credit to Matt Rule for playing up that home field advantage thing and letting people unashamedly go in there and try and make it a hostile experience.
And that's why I loved what he said in his presser after the game, where he's we need to do this every week. Can we do this every week? And I know it's hard, right? It's Northern Iowa next. There's no feelings towards Northern Iowa. After that, it's Illinois. And I think that game could actually have a pretty good atmosphere because it's a Friday night. And I think that because of it being a Friday night, you could get, some younger fans in there a little bit more. And then after that, the schedule, it's just kind of forgettable this year. I mean, Wisconsin will come to town late in the year, and certainly Nebraska's place in the Big Ten and the sport overall, I think, is going to play a part in how that one is taken in and appreciated. UCLA, same thing. Moving forward, Jack, the energy beyond, I guess, Wisconsin, the energy is going to be brought more based off of how good Nebraska is versus how good the opponent is. And that's going to be different because, obviously when you're growing up, the noise was a combination of the two, right? It was a tough atmosphere, but when the good teams came in, it was a really tough atmosphere. And obviously Oklahoma was the thing that was going to ramp it up times a billion. And then that went away, and it got up for just the big games because they would always win. Well, and then it just started becoming more about the opponents. Oh, hey, Ohio State's in town. Oh, hey, USC is in town. Oh, hey, this team is in town. Now it's time for Nebraska fans to start making the place tough because it's Nebraska hosting the game and not because of who the opponent is. Like this team, they're
Yep.
good. I think that they are worthy of a top 25 vote, obviously, at this moment in time. They need the crowd, though. I think. I like if that atmosphere last night is good, but not what it was. I think that the game is a little more in doubt. I think it's a little tougher for Nebraska. I think the crowd played a huge part especially in the first half. So, like, can people do that more often? Can people do that more often?
And Josh, I would say, like, don't take for granted how different a stadium feels when a fan base is confident. Like, we talk about this stuff, like, what are the fans going to react? And some people are probably like, who the hell cares? The fans aren't playing the game. But in terms of not only just the feel surrounding the program, but in that stadium, if you come in and the fan base is starting to get there, like, we're having conversations we just haven't had. Conversations about excitement, like real excitement about the team, and real, like, our team is really going to be a matchup problem for the opponent. Like,
yeah.
People are going to start coming in the door confident, and they just haven't done that, Josh. They have not. Again, when I sang A Whole New World the other day, this is what I'm talking about. We haven't been here, right? We haven't been here for years where you have a fan base and a team that is in a mental state of true confidence, not telling themselves, right, that they're confident, but actually being confident. And that's what we're starting to flirt with right now. And I think that's a huge game changer mentally for everyone.
Yeah, and Jack, along those lines too, like, it's a team that is, in the words of Bo Pelini, on the come. Like, they are rising right now. So, like, you know, I think that we have all had moments in fandom, and it's so different with Nebraska because they were so good for so long. But I'll speak for, like, you know, the Dallas Cowboys, professional teams we root for, where it's like there's like this out of nowhere maybe surprise element, or you have a young team and you're like, maybe a couple years down the road they'll be good, but in this moment maybe not so much. When that first starts happening, it's so fun because it's like it's new, or it's new again. It's a reminder maybe of how things used to be. That is going to be, I think, the fun part of this year, is that it is a building block, and they are obviously not perfect, and I think the second half showed that. But it's also like really, really exciting because this is the start of the ride, and you get to be on the start of the ride. Mike and Cheyenne, would you say we coming? Exactly. Like, this is the first step in all of that. I guess last year was the first step. This is the second step. This is now figuring out how to do things that you were unable to do. How do they respond to it? How do they respond? They're going to be ranked when the AP poll comes out. They're already ranked when the coaches poll comes out. How is that? How will they deal with that? I can't wait to find out, man.
And Josh, to add on to that, you're the Northern. Keena said something about it really helped. It was a night game too. Northern Iowa was a night game, but don't forget, 2 weeks from now, Illinois. You have got a Friday night against an Illinois team that is going to be unbeaten.
Yep,
because they got Central Michigan next week. I just looked it up. Yeah. You're going to get an Illinois team that's unbeaten and probably getting top 25 votes.
I was going to say they're probably going to be getting votes because
I don't know if they might have in the coaches poll today. I'm not sure, but with that's a good win against Kansas that they just got. So all of a sudden, that Friday night, and it's the record sellout, and it's Friday night, kind of standing alone in the college football world.
Dude, unique.
The unique feeling in town. The students, I think, are going to get the day off of school. Like, and by the way, shout out to that student section. Did you like?
Oh yeah,
they were there. They were there.
They said the F word.
Johnny texted me at what time did he text me at? Like 4 o'clock. Whenever they opened the doors, they
were
got
there
in,
early.
And I was like, dude, what are you gonna do? And he had balloons too, and I'm like, you're gonna hold those balloons that entire time? Ugh. Anyway, they were, but
he released those pretty fast.
He and his friends were, and it's not just him. That was full. And they stuck. They stayed there. They didn't leave. They had, like, I thought I actually loved the way they celebrated last night too. They didn't overdo it, but they also did celebrate, right? There were some on the field. Like, it was all perfect. So I want to give a shout out to a group that's been maligned, and you still shouldn't do the 3 and out bones things. That's terrible. Please,
it's horrible. Unless it's a 3 and out.
Doing that. Do everything else you're doing except that, and I'll be thrilled. Shout out Gen Z. Shout out to the students last night.
Yeah. Pretty awesome, man. Pretty awesome.
Jab says the PA guy unsuccessfully asking them to leave. That's my co-host, Nate. That's funny.
Yeah, and then the picture that Gary tweeted out yesterday of like the security guards guarding the goalpost is just the funniest thing. It's just the
They
funniest.
had no interest in the goalpost. They wanted to go down
thing.
there and dance around, was all, and take selfies. That's
By the way, for those who are friends of the Grum and they listen and you hear us or Connor Happer mention this coworker of ours, Josh. They call him Buff Josh. We call him Salesperson Josh. Nary a peep from the Colorado fan that I work with. Gary sent an awesome text at halftime where he goes in because our coworker Josh, he had sent this text on Friday where he predicted a 38-21 Colorado win. He bet on Colorado. He owes me a 4-pack of cross-strain Fairy Nectar Tall Boys, by the way. But okay. Gary texted at halftime of the game, and he goes, "You couldn't ask for a better night for football. The weather is top 10." And no one responded, but I gave it a ha-ha. It absolutely destroyed me. Absolutely destroyed me. So I'm guessing I won't see him tomorrow. My guess is I'll go to the office and the beer will already be sitting on my desk. Nice. But I will not have a chance to chat with him.
And what after all of what a journey we've been on, Josh, in the Nebraskans taking in the Deion Sanders era over the last year and 2 weeks, right? From the TCU game to the it's not the best story in college. It's not the biggest story in college football. It's the biggest story in sports. To the Sports Illustrated, the rise, the fall, the next season, and now
and like a whole offseason of talking shit and saying like it's going to be different, and their fans saying no, it's not.
The whole thing, and then that ended, and now all that we have left is the denouement for the rest of the year, and what I suspect will be the end of the Deion Sanders. Like, would you be shocked if he was back next year?
No, I definitely would not be. Would
you be shocked if he was back next year? I said.
Oh, my bad. I think I've now officially reached the mindset where if he is at Colorado in 2025, it would be a surprise.
Yes.
I think it would be a surprise.
I think so too.
Yeah.
All right. Should we watch the NFL? Let's watch the NFL.
Okay, real quick. A couple of people want to know about my thoughts on Dak.
Are we talking about the NFL?
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy that they got it done. I'm surprised, honestly. I'm very, very stunned. There was like an off ramp. I think that you could have tried to move on from him earlier in the offseason. The cap hit, if they would have if he wouldn't have, I don't know if you know about this, Jack. If he would have let this contract expire after this year and then left, it still would have cost the Cowboys like $50 million against the cap next year because they've done such a shitty job at negotiating with him. So I'm happy that they don't have to deal with that. Look, I'd rather have him than, I don't know, half of the quarterbacks in the league and probably 20. Not having a quarterback is scary. So like, I'm not going to get mad at like how much he's getting paid. It's just
You've seen that other places. Yep.
Yeah. Can you build the franchise around paying CD, which they've done, and then we'll see what happens with Micah Parsons. So like, that's the thing that I'm always worried about. Is it's not like he's not worth it. No, he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's worth whatever he is worth. In a year or two, he's going to be like the 5th or 6th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Like, that's just how stuff goes. So not super upset, but I'm also pretty pessimistic about this season. So it's not like I'm like, hell yeah, baby. It's time to turn things around. Hell yeah, baby. Yep. So I don't know. We'll see.
If you're one of the people watching this on our YouTube page and not yet a member, think about becoming a member. Check it out. Go to patreon.com/I-0 Club. If you're like, I'm never doing that. I'm never paying. I'm never doing any of that. I got enough subscriptions. Maybe just do the free subscribe button on YouTube then. And then at least you will be able to see. We do live public shows a couple of times a week. And so at least be aware of when those are happening. Sometimes we have to shift time around. That way you don't have to stay all on top of the schedule. You can just get a notification. So yeah, if you're not going to be a Patreon subscriber, which you should check out, but if you're not, at least either way, think about doing the like and subscribe on YouTube because we want to make this a little bit more accessible, especially now that we've moved basically all of our shows to YouTube. So
yeah, over the last week, we did a Wednesday show live. We had an interview. I did an interview with Brett Kane from Altitude Sports that went up Thursday. We did a Friday show live. Yesterday, we decided randomly to do a halftime show, and so we did that for 20 minutes.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known if you weren't subscribed. Yeah,
and then we did the show today. So that is 5 shows since Wednesday. And looking ahead to next week, we'll be back on Wednesday for our usual Wednesday night into club, which we do every Wednesday night. We will also be back on Saturday morning in our regular time for the Saturday morning coffee show. And that is, so the Wednesday show gets released on Fridays. Saturday morning is only for subscribers. So if you want a We think a killer pregame show before all of the games get going. You're not a fan of Big Noon. You're not a fan of College Game Day. We think that we have you covered. We do our final kind of deep dives into the Nebraska matchup. Plus, we go through the Saturday flight, which is always a wonderful experience. So we would love to have you there. And then we're also going to do a watch party for the entire game for Nebraska and UNI. And that one, again, will be only for subscribers because of how we have to watch it. We are not able to watch it together on YouTube. So we will be doing that inside of our Discord server on Saturday night. So we do a lot of content, especially over the last couple of weeks. And we know that we're gaining subscribers, whether it's on YouTube. Our podcast numbers have been through the roof lately, which is absolutely awesome. We think that if you're looking for something different and unique, that honestly, that we have you covered. So we would love to have you join us for as low as $5 a month. $5.
Although,
and we
should point out for the watch along, you have to do the 8 though.
You have to do the 8. Yes, that's true.
Because the watch alongs are inside the Discord. So
otherwise,
you get $5 if you don't want to do the Discord, you don't want to mess with that. You get everything in your podcast feed right after it happens. No shows
and you can watch the shows live on YouTube when we're not.
And you watch it live on show too. That's a good point.
And what's the Friday game schedule work for the club? For the Friday, we'll still do our normal stuff, and then we'll do a Saturday morning show. So I have my day job leading up to the game. I'll be in Lincoln. So we will do a Saturday morning recap of that for the Saturday
hangover.
Yeah, Saturday hangover. Bruce says, you heard it here, folks, 5 shows a week. Certainly not going to promise that, but we're trying to do more. I have another few +1 interviews already scheduled. Alex Kirshner will actually be joining us in the club in a week and a half. So that'll be a whole lot of fun. And other stuff too. We're trying to do, what did you say, Jack, in a text the other day? Like interviews that are different, not just the same ones that a lot of us do in the local media. And that's not a diss because I'm a part of that, but just trying to do stuff that's different.
Yes, stuff that you're not. We know there's a lot of supply when it comes to Nebraska sports media. So hopefully giving you a little something different that you can't get everywhere else. So
and
very
then,
cool.
What? Oh, sorry. What
I was going to say is Saturday night. If you haven't pulled the trigger, you've been thinking about it. Just don't watch the game alone. You don't have to watch the game alone. Watch it with us.
Jab says that Jason Kirk interview in the offseason was really good. Well played. Well played, Jab.
Still really interested in that one.
That's Jack's fault. I should have just done it solo. Very sad. Very, very sad. Matt writes, National Fun League tonight. So we are going to actually push back our first NFL pod to next week. Honestly, this is more of a me thing. Just I'm pretty fried from all of the travel and all of the pods that we have done. So it works better with Shafe's schedule too. So we're going to try to do every third week. It probably won't be as regular as anything else that we do. But we will be doing that next Sunday. So my apologies for anyone who is really, really looking forward to that tonight, but it'll fit better with my schedule and his schedule next week. So Jack, I hope that's okay for you, for your NFL pod consumption.
That'll be all right. I'm just excited to see Saints are up 10-0 already. Okay.
Yeah. The Panthers look like shit.
Well, that's not surprising.
Good Lord, Bryce Young looks horrible.
All right.
Absolutely
Enjoy your Sunday watching NFL or whatever you're doing, everyone. Good luck. Who do the Cowboys have today, Josh?
They have the Browns at 3:30.
Oh, that's right. The Browns are my fantasy defense today.
Yuck. Go Cowboys. Go Cowboys.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
Matt says, unless you know business that wants to sponsor the NFL show. Yeah, if you want the NFL pod every Sunday night, hit us up and we can talk.
They'll do it
Basically,
every night.
We want Shafe to get a little extra scratch because Shafe gives up a lot of his time on a Sunday night to chat with us. So sure. Again, we appreciate everybody. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page. Also subscribe to the podcast feed. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. And if you miss anything, including the pod that we did last night, I mean, it's weird. It's 20 minutes in the middle of a game, but it's available for you if you want to hear us like super duper excited. So that is all.
It might be worth it just for the experience.
It's really fun. We had so much fun.
Me drinking beer out of a Fred Hoiberg cup and just like,
I watched the beginning of it, Jack. You just kept doing this. Fred is smiling. Fred is smiling. I was like, what is this?
I was in a place, man. I was in a good place. Let's just say that. I was in a very good place like a lot of other people were at that time.
Indeed. All right. We're back on Wednesday. Wednesday night in the club at 8 o'clock. Jack, this was fun. Nebraska 2-0 for the first time since 2016. And they're 2-0 with a win over a power school for the first time since 2007. My God, things are happening. All right, we'll talk to you everybody on
Wednesday.
Bye.